Good morning, JD. Today is March 11th, and it is an A-Day. Calling all writers and artists, Rambunctious Literary Magazines is accepting submissions for our spring issue. Submit via QR code or posters around the school or at jdlitmag.org. Finally, there's a Jedi meeting on the 13th of March. This is a mandatory meeting. Have a good day, JD.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So you were talking about your Hollow Fire book. Why did you make it the main character a journalist?
Well, I was editor of my school newspaper. So that's one thing I have in common with her. And in that novel, I was really trying to discuss or to interrogate really the notion of fact and truth and alternative facts, because now we live in a world where the phrase alternative facts actually exists. And I think journalists are so important, because journalists are supposed to be telling the truth, right? They're supposed to be stating the facts, but what happens when those are challenged? What happens when somebody is trying to hide the truth? How is the job of the journalist critical in revealing truths that some people are trying to hide? And when does a journalist need to do that? And in this case, she's actually, her desire to find the truth is bringing her closer and closer to danger.
Another question on Hollow Fires. It's a really dynamic work that shifts between several mixed medias, such as court documents and news articles. What's kind of the creative process for kind of making a piece that's kind of feathered with all these different?
That's a great question. I like how you phrased it too. So yes, that novel has all these things. There's like Reddit, there's like interviews, there's all this press stuff, there's tweets, there's all different kinds of media in there. And it was actually such a cool challenge, and it was a challenge because, so I have the whole story going on in the novel, right? So we have the story of the young woman, and we have like the story of this ghost of the boy who's been murdered. And those two are the main voices. But they also live in this world where all these things are happening around them, where there's like interviews about, who is this murdered boy, or first when he goes missing, where there's people responding, there's like radio transcripts from far right, radio hosts, because I wanted the reader to have this feeling of what it might be like for those characters who are living in that moment, which is Sophia's trying to solve a crime, but at the same time she's bombarded with all this other media, like whether it's social media, whether it's TV, whether it's other people who are just spewing lies or hate. And I wanted, as the story is unraveling, to understand the influences that are sort of like finding their way into that story. And also how people react. Remember when I said this is a novel about understanding what the difference is between truth and fact and lie and alternative facts. All of those other like mixed media elements are presenting some pieces of those. Like there are like the alternative facts where they're basically villainizing the boy who's been murdered. And we see that. And I think that also speaks to like the ethics and responsibility of journalism and who gets to call themselves a journalist. So I really wanted to put that in there. But the hard part about that was when I edited the main story, I then had to edit all those media pieces because some of them are in response to something that's happening in the main story, some of them are adjacent to it, but if you cut out like a chapter from the main story, then you're like, oh no, they can't have like a podcast about this if this thing hasn't happened yet. So then I had to kind of juggle it. So it's like, or it's really like a big puzzle, and if you got to make sure that the pieces fit together.
What do you hope that kids take away from your books?
Well, I hope kids feel, I hope some kids feel seen. I hope other kids feel like, I hope my novels can somehow build empathy when people read them. I hope kids can be inspired to not just find their voices, but use their voices to make things better, whether it's in their school or community, the world. I mean, I'm really inspired by young people because all over this country and the world, young people are like leading these fights. Like they're protesting against, gun violence and against, climate change. And there's young people who are standing up in their districts to like the school board. And I mean, I went to a school board meeting where I spoke at, because 2 of my books were banned there. And there was also a high school student who spoke at it. And it was like, what you're doing is wrong. And there's high school kids who are leading, protests and marches against all of these injustices. So I just hope that maybe reading a book like mine or other books that are out there, young people can realize how powerful they are and how to use the power of their voices, for good.
Welcome back to Lunches with Dylan and Brody.
On Monday, we'll have chicken tenders, a dinner roll, sweet potato fries, and baked beans.
On Tuesday, we'll have a cheeseburger on a bun, mashed potatoes, and corn.
On Wednesday, we'll have loaded waffle fries, green beans, and baby carrots with ranch dip.
On Thursday, we'll have a meatball sub, tater tots, and corn.
And finally, on Friday, we'll have pizza crunchers, tossed salad with dressing, and steamed broccoli.